good old Texas welcome, like throw a boot. Maritza, Annar.
Hi. Okay. Yeah, so I grew up, I'm not from Austin, I've lived here for a long time though, but I grew up in cities my whole life, and then I moved to a very small village in Ukraine, maybe like 6,000 people, and I ended up writing a lot of like poems about nature because in my free time I would just go into the forest by the river and like hang out. I don't know. So these are a couple of poems that I wrote while I was in Ukraine. I watched the sunrise in the morning. For the first time this winter, a shy brightness over the cloudy, muted sky. Last winter, I'd wake up every morning before the sunrise, watch it rise from the peaks like a warm blanket over my own translucent D-deficient skin, over my grieving heart, reflecting the snowy paths below. The snow has not stuck this winter, so I breathe in frosty mornings, where dew has formed as white flakes embedded over the grass. A crackle of footprints that will melt into the mud by afternoon. Frosty mornings where it is you and the cuckoos and the hungry dogs, where it is the babusias sweeping their driveways, or carrying her jars of milk in large bags to the bazaar, where it is the men in gray beanies and unshaven faces at the bus stop, cigarettes in aged hand. He breathes out smoke and you warm air. Frosty mornings where the potholes have formed into miniature ice rinks. You try to find your center cautiously, taking small steps, because 1 foot wrong is a fall you'll never be prepared for. I want the snow to come and stay. I want to lay down in the snow, arms out like angels, but instead I just roll around until my body is permanently sunken into the ground, my skin wet and cold, but my blood and lungs and heart and kidneys comparatively hot, because I will be protected and the sun will rise, the white landscape halting in the light. And then I have one more. This is like a part 2 poem, and I wrote the first part before I left about like living in the city and city life and how much anxiety nature kind of gave me. And this is like the opposite, I guess, like a few years later. It's called Monuments. If you look carefully, you'll see chrysanthemums start to bloom in between the pebbles and litter by the river in pockets of soil. If you're lucky, you'll see yellow curves on fresher ground. Pick those and place those in pots of hot water for tea. Why is it so easy for me to capture loneliness on the background of busy streets? Car horns and full bodies pressed against cold traffic signs. Light pollution has now compressed into a single street light on a dirt road. But let's not pretend that the trees haven't been cut, or that you can't find beer bottles, use napkins, receipts, cartons of empty cigarettes form hills while melted snow from the mountains stream down the river, rapid and clear over the rocks. I used to stare into empty eyes and think that skyscrapers could compare to the cliffs that the children fish from. I'd meander through people on sidewalks with my neck craned and my feet formed rhythms to soothe me. It was easy to be afraid of nothingness, of silence. When the truth is, I've sat embraced by belts of alder and birch. Bees landed gracefully on my elbows. Cranes greeted me outside my window. Sunrises and sunsets. Tea from wild chrysanthemums, strangers who aren't strangers at all. Thank you.
Next is my very dear friend, Annar. Welcome. And so it's this really long, continuous poem that is set up like a screenplay, and it's a hybrid of both genres. One of my favorite writers is the surrealist Benjamin Fontaine. We have this book here, in of poems in the translated poetry section. When I read that book, it like clicked for me, and so I started these little babies. Today I'm going to read one section that's in the middle of the piece. And, yeah. Exterior, downtown Austin, continuous. A dog whistle is blown, and bad men are around to hear it. A dog whistle is blown from the middle of the road. We see men in suits emerge from the tops of buildings. They peer over the edge. They lean. A goat fidgets. A breeze. The bottom of a skirt ruffles. The men in suits lean too far. They fall like stones, expressionless. A man in tweed falls 4 stories. A man in a military suit falls 3. Another man 5. Another 2. Not to their deaths. They land face down, silence. A goat fidgets, a breeze. The bottom of a skirt ruffles. Another goat fidgets. A herd of girl goats fidget. A herd of girl goats stampede. Confetti falls. A heavyweight champion boxer is loose. A parade begins. A marching band appears. A woman with someone else's skin drops dead. An orange rolls into the street. A marching band is led by a woman in a black hooded cloak. A marching band plays as a herd of girl goats crush the backs of suited men. An orange into pulp. In the summer, you can leave out meat to dry, let it harden, let it feed a town. Blood crystallizes on the pavement. A parade moves through it. Girl goats lead the way. I'm excited to introduce our most beloved, okay, now I'm picking favorites. Allyson Whipple. Please take the stage.
I was gonna read the thing I wrote about my wisdom teeth while I was still kind of high, and then I looked at it and I was like, I don't think that, maybe not. I tend not to actually like things that I've written while I was on all the things that they give you. So I'm gonna read some haiku instead. And I'll read each haiku twice, as is custom in high school fashion. Stars fading into Christmas lights still glowing. Stars fading into Christmas lights still glowing. In my wine glass, not waiting but drowning, a housefly. In my wine glass, not waiting but drowning, a housefly. Cigarette drag, the last gasp of wildflowers in November wind. Cigarette drag, the last gasp of wildflowers in November wind.
Not to gossip, but our next ice cream social writer is just full of drama. So dramatic. So let's see what she writes plays. Aneesa.
Okay, so I'm going to read one off my blog, music, play site, and if you haven't been here and you want to know more, if you have been here and want to know more, hit me up and say hello after. All right, so this is called Ditmas, and it's inspired by the Mumford & Sons song. The Mumford & Sons song. Woman is working at her desk workspace on a painting. She faces a window and continually looks outside as she paints. Woman. The last words I said to him were, "This is all I ever was. I've never tried to trick anyone I've dated, especially not him. It's been a year now. He and I met almost 10 years ago to the day. We started dating 4 years into that. Nothing out of the ordinary. 2 people who knew they wanted to give it a shot finally. Not a fairy tale by any means, but it was kind of perfect in itself. My friends didn't think it would last. They gave me 9 months, and he and I lasted 5 years. It's almost incredible. I keep finding photos, PDF tickets, and grocery lists with their menus, trinkets that allow me to reminisce. I'm finding them now, again, like I came across those years ago. Maybe because I can't help it, or maybe because I'm trying not to think about it, like that phenomenon, you know, where you learn a new word and all of a sudden you're hearing it and seeing it everywhere, even though it's been there all along. We fought hard that last night. I don't know what it was about. He wanted something and I never listened before I fought back. A vase shattered. It was too close to the edge and I hit the table with my fist. It was like slow motion after that. We silently let it wobble and then crash to the floor in what must have been 500 pieces. He looked at me, back at the ground, and without looking up, he whispered, "You go too far." He packed one bag right then and must have slept at his friend's place or the gym. For the next 2 days, he kept coming back for more of his stuff until he was done. No chatting or texting, it was over. I deleted his number, knowing if I needed it in an emergency, my best friend had it saved as a last resort. All social media was stripped and people unfriended to get rid of any reminders. 3 weeks ago, we ran into each other at the grocery store, no less. He told me I looked good. I returned some compliment half-heartedly and put on my best fake smile. He knew I felt weird about this encounter and the rules of running into each other. As always, he was sad that I changed throughout our relationship and wished we could go back to the beginning. I had to tell him it was good seeing him and that it was time for me to check out. Stumbling through the words for the 50 bajillionth time, don't tell me that I've changed because that's not the truth. 50 was 50 too many times to use that line. I accept that now I'm losing him. Well, really, that I've lost him. He never left me any room to let him back in. The piece I'm working on is called Fragile Sound. It seemed to be the only thing that makes sense as I try to mend my heart. Painting was that effect for me, and this window is my favorite place to do it. Right here, I get to watch everyone on the outside. See the sun, the smiling children, let the heat seep in. On the other hand, the world outside just watches as I crawl. Slowly getting up each day and reminding myself that I'm crawling toward a life of fragile lines. It all hurts, even post 1 year. Reminding myself that every day it gets just a minuscule amount better. I can do this, I can work through this, and I'll be okay. So I work on my art, painting this anger and sadness and our old love so that I can move on. Our love was wonderful, but it was out of place and wasted time too. Thank you so much.
Up next, we have our beloved Jenny Keto. Hi. Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah and Happy Hallmark. You're not religious in any way. This one it's gone through many drafts, but I think it's finally done and ready to find a home. It's called After Her End. I kept knocking my backpack against the locked glass because Mother could never hear my hands ask. I kept knocking, careless of my favorite thing I brought to school that day for show and tell. I kept knocking, even after my palm-sized world broke. Once a glass-encased display, then a cracked egg yolk spilled and splayed. My snow globe could not bear the blows, nestled among matching Care Bear tin box and canteen. It became a marble my backpack slung and shot against the sliding glass door. I hadn't collected enough years to know that knocking two of the same together will break one or the other. I didn't notice the sound of glass on glass splitting until a second after my hand stopped to hear the silence. It was my world, to shake with God hands clasped around it and make the elements tremble. It was my world, gone, no longer here to watch the weather settle to the speed of taffy stretching from my sweet teeth. It was my world, there, cracked flat, wet on the deck, choking on air. My backpack bled glimmer, held inside its chest. Each piece of glass jangled jagged, something cut. My breath stuck, because I knew the sound of broken. Mother told me never to pick up what is left sharp or risk blood. But still, I unzipped to find my mermaid washed up with beach glass on damp canvas shores. No longer riding her seahorse in water, I plucked and put her in my palm. I wondered where her gills were, and how there might be a tremor, her grasping for air. I crossed all my fingers and strained to cross all the crosses, hoping that after this end, she could crawl out of my girl hands clasping and begin again. I imagined her every time I ticked and tucked a loose lock behind my ear. I imagined her every time I felt left lost like her, with Mother. I imagined her, renamed her, then heard her rising tide hum and rush to greet me anew. Now I am her, with woman feet to saddle and ride my horse on new land. I pack sand with every gallop along the coastline in the opposite of direction. My hair once coiled tight now lets the wind break each strand free. I sing the way a mermaid's mane would stream behind her kinetic spree, airbrushed with sea salt, mad with glee.
And our last open micer tonight was recently a featured reader. She blew us away at a previous open mic, and so we had her back I think the next month as a featured reader, Sarah Beach.
Hello. I'm going to read, excuse me, I'm going to read two poems. One is really, really new and one is pretty old, and they're connected because time is not linear. Adding sage to my grocery list at the bus stop. Just now, I passed the spot I passed you on campus. The day I'd accepted it was over, but hadn't quite gotten used to the ache. Today, I'm headed to the bus and not class, heading for my office and not my twin bed, but still, I'm thinking, is this how it feels to both move on and stay the same? I'm back in this city, in this place where I learned how to forget, how to empty, how to dress each day in glitter and shame. And I'm married now and no love, but still I'm writing a poem to you. So maybe I'll always feel like an eggshell, cracked, yolk extracted, tossed away. I didn't stop that day, although I longed to, wanted to wrap myself in your arms, even while still feeling the sting of having them ripped away. Today I put on my jacket, get out a notebook, write a prayer for the girl with the blue backpack, write an ode to her unflinching eyes, her mouth singed with unflung flames. I write a song for her future heart, beating louder with the sound of her own name. And this is called Pareidolia. The truth is, I've never seen a ghost in the way these things are discussed. My mind's closed by the same fear that causes most distrust, but my uninviteds shadow me closely, reveal themselves to me in between awakes and asleeps, and I think of them as haints, their paw gloving me like leather on a hand. My life is not without faces of the dead in my bed, their intimacy more mirror than ghost, their whispers a maleficence that rattles in the confinement of my bones. What is living but a haunting, a hunting for form and the misshapen? I wade each day through mist. Thank you.